Well, it's not a good look. I'll say that. The reason that he gave for not, where he didn't see it as a good fit was that he wasn't going to be able to bring his staff with him. And I think when you make that explanation, I think that actually, in hindsight, is better for the Eagles because I don't think much of Steve Spagnuolo as a defensive coordinator. So if you're getting a package deal of Tom Coughlin and Steve Spagnuolo, then that is not at all what I think would be the best thing for the Eagles. Steve Spagnuolo would bring a 4-3 to the team, which I actually do think would be a good thing. I think their personnel is more geared toward that. But when you look at Steve Spagnuolo's record over his career, of course, with the one Super Bowl season aside, when they had Hall of Famer and Michael Strahan and Justin Tuck and O.C. Umenyiora rushing the passer, he just really has not had good results. So with that in hindsight, it's probably not for them. But it is certainly alarming that that they lost Ben McAdoo to the Giants, and then they lost Tom Coughlin to nobody in particular.
Yeah, and he pulls his name out of the mix, so that leaves who?
Well, they have the three guys that they have already interviewed, which, as we all know, the name's been thrown around for the last 2 weeks. And that's Deuce Staley, that is Pat Shurmur, and that is Doug Peterson, all either current or former employees of the Eagles. And you have a lot of other names that are sort of popular, but there's really, no meat to it in terms of reporting of who the Eagles have actually spoken to or have interest in trying to hire. So those are the three names right now that they have confirmed to have interviewed, and everyone pure speculation at this point.
Jimmy Kempski's with us. Jimmy, have they mishandled this coaching search? I mean, they fire Kelly with 2 weeks left to get a head start, and here they are with no coach, and Kelly has a job.
Right. Yeah, Kelly found his new marriage first in the post-breakup. I'm actually very, very surprised that he found a head coaching job. But he was able to reunite with Gamble, who the Eagles kind of fired unceremoniously at the end of the 2014 season. He became the senior personnel head in San Francisco, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with Chip Kelly's arrival in San Francisco there. But yeah, it's you can certainly question the way the Eagles have handled it so far. They brought in Adam Gase. He wound up going to the Dolphins. They lose Ben McAdoo to the Giants. Tom Coughlin takes his name out of the running, and I think what they did differently this time than what they did in 2013 is 2013 they went after Chip Kelly. It was all about how convincing Chip Kelly why he should be the head coach in Philadelphia. And I think this time around it's kind of been the opposite. I think they've taken more of an aggressive approach with their candidates, trying to get their candidates to explain why they should be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think they've tried to been a little bit more methodical about it and not rush into the first guy that they like they did the last time around with Chip Kelly. And the way it's worked out is they may wind up being the last team to hire their new head coach for 2016, which is not what anyone would have projected, I would think anyway, when they had the head start on everyone.
Yeah, and obviously they're down to the three guys that you mentioned, Shurmur, Staley, and Peterson. How does Doug Peterson make sense for the Eagles? Because he's not interviewing anywhere else. His name hasn't been mentioned anywhere, and obviously the Andy Reid connection. Is it simply that Andy Reid has endorsed him to be a coach, and therefore he makes sense?
Yeah, maybe. The one thing that I pointed out with Peterson, and again, to be clear, I'm not the biggest Peterson fan in the world, but if you squint hard enough, you can kind of make an argument for the way that the Eagles' seasons have gone the last 2 years. For me, you look at what the Eagles did the last 2 years, and the reason for the downfall of the 2014 and 2015 seasons was that they just gave the ball over far too much. They had 36 giveaways in the NFL. In fact, it was a triple crown of turnover awfulness, as I like to call it, in 2014. They had the most interceptions, the most fumbles lost, and obviously with those two, you have the most total turnovers in the NFL. And then in 2015, they had 31. So they didn't really correct it all that much. They wound up being third worst in the NFL in that department. And when you look at those Chiefs teams teams over the last 3 years, they've only turned the ball over 50 times in 3 years. The Eagles, by contrast, have turned it over 87 times, and that's even with a good 2013 year when they only turned it over 19 times. So over the last 2 years, the Eagles have turned the ball over more than any other team in the NFL, while the Chiefs have, I think they have the third least number of turnovers in the NFL. You can maybe point to Alex Smith as being, a big reason for that, and that he's sort of a conservative type quarterback. But I would think that Peterson has something to do with that as well. And the Chiefs are what they are. I mean, offensively, they like to run the ball. And they're kind of a conservative team. Their numbers offensively in the passing game aren't great. They're somewhere in like the mid-20s typically over the last 3 years since Peterson and Reed have been there. And then their rushing numbers are usually somewhere right around 10th or right in that top 10 kind of area. So they play ball control, and I think what they do is they recognize that the strength of that team is their defense, and they play accordingly. Now, if he were to come to Philly, maybe he kind of recognizes that that's what's going on here. In my opinion, the Eagles have a lot more talent on defense than they do on the offensive side of the ball. So maybe a guy like Peterson recognizes that, is content to play, a little bit more ball control on offense, unlike Chip Kelly. Over the last 3 years, or at least the last 2 years, I don't think he recognized what the strength of his team was. Maybe Peterson would. So again, if you squint hard enough, you can kind of make an argument there.
Jimmy Kempski is with us, covers the Eagles, PhillyVoice.com. How much, Jimmy, in your opinion, is Roseman a detriment to this hire? That people just don't want to work for him. I mean, some people believe that that's why Kelly is no longer here, that he just did not want to work with or for Howie again. And is he a problem in hiring somebody new?
He's got that reputation. I can't speak specifically with any of the coaches that they've hired. I can't speak specifically about Tom Coughlin and whether he had concerns about that. I can't speak specifically with Ben McAdoo and whether he had concerns with Roseman, and I can't speak specifically with Adam Gase, who interviewed with the Eagles and then wound up moving along to the Dolphins. But I think it's fair to say that, as you mentioned, he does have that reputation, but in terms of specifics on the three guys that have interviewed with the Eagles and wound up coaching somewhere else, I really can't speak to it.
All right, Jimmy. Let me ask you then about Shurmur. Is Shurmur a guy the Eagles are hopeful the next coach keeps around?
Good question. And I don't know. I mean, they had enough respect for him to interview him. Mm-hmm. I mean, they made him the interim head coach after they fired Chip Kelly, obviously, and then after the season was over, they did interview him for the head coaching job. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's part of the deal with, coaches that they've brought in, that they've, said we want to keep Shurmur around as the offensive coordinator or not. I really have no idea. The point that people have made with Shurmur, I guess, the fan base, whenever I hear someone say that they want Shurmur to be the head coach, they speak toward continuity, and, in that Sam Bradford in particular hasn't had, a lot of stability in terms of, having one offensive coordinator from 1 year to the next throughout his entire career. Maybe he can do that this year if they were to keep Shurmur aboard. I don't really see the purpose of that personally because, A, it may not even be the same system anyway. There may be elements of what Chip Kelly brought to Philadelphia, but Pat Shurmur's probably going to kind of do his own thing if he were to become a head coach or offensive coordinator. And then beyond that, you look at what the offense was over the last 2 years. I don't know why you would want to continue with what they kind of did there because by the end here, nothing was really working. So I don't know, typically if but there already, and I don't really think the Eagles' offense was good by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever. So I really don't get the argument for Pat Shurmur, but, certainly the Eagles could they could like him. Obviously, like I said, they thought enough of him to at least give him an interview. Yeah. But again, I can't speak to it whether they've pushed him on any of their candidates or not.
In your opinion, Jimmy, better candidate Shurmur or Peterson?
I'm inclined to roll with the devil I don't know. So I'd lean toward Peterson because I don't know what he can do as a head coach. We've kind of seen what Pat Shurmur was in Cleveland, and that didn't go over so well. So I'd be inclined to just kind of take my chances with the other guy. Hey. Yes and no. I know the Eagles think he's a stud. He may be a future head coach, and they may. I think certainly they want him to stick on the Eagles coaching staff in some capacity, no matter who they hire. But I think they definitely want to keep him around, and maybe in some sort of elevated position. But yeah, I think they really think very highly of Deuce Staley. I don't think that was just a Rooney Rule interview. I think they really do think highly of him. I don't think they give him a shot at a head coach. I don't think they give him like a real shot at being the head coach, because you look at his resume. He was special teams quality control coach for a couple of years when Andy Reid was here. He's only been a positional coach for 3 years. He's coached the running backs over the last 3 years, and that's just really not a long time in the NFL. And he's never been obviously he's never been a coordinator. And even when you look at the number of guys that he actually coaches, he's got 4 running backs. He's at any given time during the season, he's got 3 or 4 running backs that he coaches. So to go from 3 or 4 guys all the way to 53 would be an enormous jump. And again, like I said, and you pile on the number of years that he's had in the NFL as a head coach, and I'd just be concerned about how ready he would be. But again, I don't think that the Eagles were interviewing him just for the sake of the Rooney Rule. I think they really do think very, very highly of him. And I think the word that I've heard is that they think he's a stud.
That's interesting because, I was talking about this yesterday. Dan Campbell, I'm assuming at no point did the Dolphins think that he was going to run their team. And I'm not saying that he's a high-profile head coach. The guy won 5 games as a tight end coach. So I'm not saying it's rocket science, but maybe just having a guy with the right attitude. And look, they were 5-7 with him. He wasn't great, but he wasn't horrendous. I mean, he wasn't an embarrassment to that organization. And you wonder if you're going to see more guys like that. But it doesn't seem like it the way these hirings have gone.
Yeah, I don't really know Dan Campbell's history, but I mean, I wouldn't see what happens.
Well, you get these guys that want. You get these
experience kind of works against them. I think if they had hired Coughlin, maybe that makes sense. Where, realistically, even if things go well, Coughlin's going to coach a maximum number, 3, maybe 3 more years in the NFL at his age, and maybe at that point when he decides to hang him up or whatever the Eagles wanted to do there. By that time, maybe a guy like Deuce Staley could be ready to go. But obviously, that option's out the window with Coughlin having withdrawn his name. But again, with Deuce, it's just with an extreme amount of risk.
Well, you get these guys who always want to see like Brian Dawkins be the coach or Jeremiah Trotter, right. Guys who are like passionate players. They have to be the next head coach. The staff is like, Dawkins is the coach, Trotter's the defensive coordinator, Westbrook's the offensive coordinator. That coaching staff has been thrown probably your way and my way for like the last 5 years.
That would not be a good football team, I don't
think. Jimmy, there has been some reports that the Eagles are not going to hold any more interviews. Do you think it is Peterson, Shurmur, Staley, one of those 3?
Yeah, I mean, just from the information that's been presented and it's been reported so far, and I haven't heard of any other candidates myself that they're planning to bring in. So, yeah, I mean, it would appear that those will be the 3 guys to choose from. Maybe that will change as they have a chance to kind of. I mean, they just lost the guy that they had in the lead in McAdoo, and then their backup Coughlin bailed out as well. So maybe they kind of take a step back and reevaluate and start to look at the global list of names and add to it. But as of right now, it does appear that those are the 3 guys.
All right, Jimmy Kempski, PhillyVoice.com. The Philadelphia Eagles still searching, and Chip Kelly has landed in San Francisco. He is the new head coach. Look, Kelly and Kaepernick. The Eagles fans, a lot of people wanted to see that. They're going to get their wish.
And enjoy Riley Cooper, San Francisco.
Hey, that's not a bad move from Philly to San Francisco. We got his hair cut, too. Feel the breeze out there. All right, pal, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mike.